Shift happens, sometimes by choice, sometimes by circumstance. And when it does, you have two options. You can either cling to the life you've outgrown or step into the version of you that knows she's meant for more. I'm Gialacqua, trauma-informed empowerment coach and founder of Radical Prioritization. Welcome to What the Shift, the podcast for women who've outgrown the life they've built and are ready to create one that finally fits. Here we get real about the shifts that change everything: identity shifts, career pivots, relationship resets, mindset breakthroughs, and learning how to finally release what's holding you back. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just be ready for what's next. It's time to shift. If you feel like life is shifting, you're in the right place. I'm Gialacqua, and welcome to What the Shift. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Tara Clark. Tara is an author, speaker, content creator, podcaster, mental health advocate, and founder of Modern Mom Probs. After becoming a mom and recognizing a hole in the online space for moms to authentically connect, she launched her Instagram account in 2016. She has since built a valued community, solidifying herself as a humorous, trusted voice in the parenting space. She's been featured in prominent media, including The Washington Post, ABC News, NBC News, Today, Motherly, Parents.com, Scary Mommy, and Yahoo Life. She's the author of Modern Mom Probs, a survival guide for 21st century mothers. Tara is also the host of the Modern Mom Probs podcast, where she seeks to find solutions for modern mom problems by interviewing medical experts, therapists, popular content creators, and best-selling authors. Wow, that was a mouthful. Welcome to the show, Tara. So happy to have you join us today.
Thank you so much for having me. That is when you read it, I'm like, oh gosh, that's a lot of stuff. But we've been doing it for a while, so it's okay.
You're doing a lot of things. I love the work you're doing. And I love your tagline on Instagram, which is because every mom needs community and laughter. Amen. I would add coffee to that, but yes. Love it.
Yes.
Love it. So tell us a little bit, speaking of shifts, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to the work that you're doing today. I know you left a corporate job to build something of your own. So tell us about that shift.
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to bring you all the way back to 2016. Actually, no, that's not true. I'm going to bring you back even further to that. So I started my account in 2016. But before that, I worked at Nickelodeon, and I loved Nickelodeon. It was like an amazing, amazing company. It was the most talented, creative people. And when my son was born, I had the very tough decision to decide whether or not to go part-time or full-time or stay home with him, or I was trying to think of all the different iterations.
Sure.
And 13 years ago, that just simply wasn't the case, right? I remember still being on maternity leave. I think I had 1 week left. And I was speaking with my boss at the time, and she herself was a mother of 2 small children. And I remember talking with her and saying, I would love to go part-time or maybe some sort of hybrid. That wasn't even a discussion, 13. That wasn't even the phrase, but I was like, I would love to maybe go part-time or whatever. And she said, it's all or nothing. And I said, okay. And I responded with, well, then it's going to be nothing because I want to stay home with my son full time. And that was a really hard decision to make because we were living in New York City, and there was this unspoken pressure to continue with what we had been doing, to either put the baby in daycare or get a nanny and just continue on with my corporate career. So here I am fast forwarding a little bit, but I decided to stay home with him full time. And in early 2016, I had the idea of creating an Instagram page about parenting and monetizing it. And I said to my friends and family, this was February of 2016. I said, I'm going to start an Instagram page. It's going to be about parenting, and I'm going to monetize it. And they're like, you're going to do what? And I was like, no, it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. No, trust me. And they're like,
great.
That's literally, I was like, no, it's going to be a thing. Trust me on that. They're like, yeah, okay, good luck with that. And I was like, bet, here we go. I'm going to do it. And so I started the account. It was under the name NYC Mom Probs because I was talking about the things that New York City moms had to deal with, whether it was taking your stroller down the subway stairs or getting your kids into private school, just different things, mostly first world kind of problems, and actually was inspired by the Upper East Side Moms Facebook page, which if you've ever seen that, it's like bananas. It's just bananas. So that inspired me to start NYC Mom Probs. And then at the end of 2016, we moved to the suburbs. So we moved out of Manhattan into Bergen County, New Jersey. And I had this existential crisis with the account where I said, well, I don't have NYC Mom Probs anymore. What do I have? And I remember it was April of 2017. I was DMing with a friend of mine who's also a content creator. She actually lives out in Kansas City. And she and I were throwing adjectives around, bouncing ideas like, how about this? And how about that? And how about that? And I said to her, how about modern mom probs? And she was like, oh my God, yes. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And so literally like a flick of a switch, the next day I changed the account from NYC Mom Probs to Modern Mom Probs, and the account just absolutely took off from there because everyone realized like, oh yeah, I relate to that. I have Modern Mom Probs. And so like I said, the account just took off from there. So depending on who asks me and how long of a time I have to explain the background history of it, I either say I started in the account in 2016 or I say that I started the account in 2017 because technically Modern Mom Probs was 2017, but I was already doing it for a whole year prior to that. And even before that, I didn't mention this, but when I was at Nickelodeon, I worked in social media, and there was a time where I was actually Dora the Explorer on Facebook. And and my mom used to run around and be like, my daughter's Dora the Explorer. I was like, on Facebook, mommy, on Facebook, stop. It's awkward. So I had a background in social media. But at that time in 2012, we as Nickelodeon, as a company, we were not on Instagram. It was not a priority for us. So it was all mainly Facebook and Twitter at the time. And then eventually, obviously, they got into Instagram, but not in 2012. So Instagram was new. And in early 2016, Instagram was just starting to take off. There was a shiny new website coming out called Canva at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, now everyone's just like, yeah, Canva's always been around, but no, it was like pretty new. And so Canva was coming out, and I just had the idea to like create memes and jokes and stories and all of that kind of stuff for Instagram in 2016. And so here we are nearly 10 years later, which is just absolutely bananas. But that is my origin story.
It's incredible. There's so much I want to dig into there. So you left this corporate media job and started your own thing, even with the naysayers, right? And usually it's the people closest to us, unfortunately.
It's always that. It's always that. It's the friends and family where you say, I got this idea. And they go, yeah, okay, good luck with that. No one's doing that. Because it's hard to imagine a time where no one really was making jokes on Instagram, but that was very true. Like there was only a small handful, and I saw an opportunity there. And I said, I know people that were making memes and stuff about like just generalized things, but no one was really leaning into parenthood quite so much at that point. So I was like, I think I can do this. And I did.
And you followed that instinct, which I love. And it's such a relatable pain point. And so it's incredible, the community that you've built off of Instagram. But you talk about giving yourself permission to pivot in your life. Talk to us a little bit about what that means to you, what that looked like, and why do you think so many women have a hard time with the pivot?
Well, I think women in general have a really hard time to give ourselves permission to do just about anything. Whether it's like, oh, I got to run to the bathroom real fast. Like, yeah, go to the bathroom. Like, you're allowed to go to the bathroom. It's okay. It's hard sometimes to give, I don't know, to allow ourselves grace and allow ourselves permission to things. But for the pivot, I'll speak more about that. And that goes back to the story that I started to share in the beginning, which was my husband and I tried so hard to have our son. We had, this is like a separate episode altogether, but, we had suffered pregnancy loss and then infertility and just all of these different things. So that's a whole episode by itself. But finally, I was pregnant with this baby and we were so excited. We tried so hard to have him. And here he was, and he was beautiful and he was healthy. And I was just so happy. We were just overjoyed. And then I was faced with this decision. Like I said, when I was on maternity leave, do I continue working for a company that I loved? And at that point, I was already there for 5 years. I could see how I could continue to grow there. I could continue to grow my career. It was a solid company with fun, talented, great people. So there was that. And then on the other side, it was like, here's this beautiful baby who I wanted to spend my time with. And we worked so hard to get him here. And so I felt so very torn. And when I had the conversation with my boss, and like, I remember, I'll never forget it because I was pacing the baby's nursery. I was pacing his bedroom at the time. He might have been napping. I don't really remember. I mean, he was a baby. He was probably in the bassinet. But I remember pacing in his room because I was so nervous while I was chatting with her and trying to like ask for that going part-time. And she said, no, it's a full-time head. She's like, it's out of my control. There's nothing I could do. It's a full-time head. So either you're coming back full-time like you had been previously, or you're not coming back. And I said, I guess, Julie, I'm not coming back. And that was hard because as working women, and anyone really, we put so much into our job title, in our roles, in our positions, and we find so much, I don't know if it's like joy might not be the right word, but like so much importance is the right word. So much importance on these roles and these titles. And then when you take that away and you go, oh my gosh, like I don't work at Nickelodeon anymore. And it sort of like used to be someone who like something that like defined me. You're like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work at Nickelodeon. Oh my God, that's so awesome. Like, tell me all about it. And when that goes away, then you're like, oh, what do I have? Who am I? You know, there's so many different questions. Highly recommend the book. I'm going on a tangent here, by my friend Neha Rush, called The Power Pause. If you haven't read it, it's amazing. Neha is amazing. She's doing amazing work over there. But she and I have talked about my story many times. And she's like, Tara, like what you did is exactly the power pause. What you did is what I talk about in the book. What that means is that you may pause your career for the time being, but then you know what? You come back bigger, better, and stronger because you're doing your own thing. And so when my son was 3, first of all, when you have toddlers, there's just an endless amount of content. It's just like, whether it's like funny stuff or serious stuff or motivating, like it's just constant content when you have toddlers. Not saying pictures of them necessarily, but I'm saying stories and, you know, jokes and all the things. So that's when I started my account because I was like, I got to write this down. This stuff is wild. You know, like this, I can't be the only one going through this, right? Like this is bananas. And so that's when I started my account. And it was when he was 3. Partly because I was looking for a creative outlet, partly because I thought it'd be interesting to try to do this as a business, and partly because I was looking for friends and I was looking for a way to connect with other mothers. I was living in New York City. I was very lonely. I didn't have a lot of in-person friends. Most of my friends either weren't parents or they were still working at Nickelodeon. And so I needed a way to connect with people. And that's what I did through writing these jokes and posting on Instagram. And so it wasn't just one reason on why I started this business, right? But the permission to pivot was that decision where I decided to say to my boss, it's all or nothing. And I said, okay, it's going to be nothing. And it took me essentially 3 years, right? To kind of, I was home with him full time, doing the whole mom thing and all of this. And like I said, when I saw canva.com coming out and I was like, this is really interesting. There's like, to quote my old boss, there's a there. And then Instagram, I was like, you know, I could do something here. And I just sort of had like the inkling of that. Like I said, early 2016. And I kind of just ran with it. And it didn't, you know, it was not financially solvent in the beginning, but again, like it's such low overhead to do a business like that. You're like, there's no cost, right? But then you started getting ads, and then you could start promoting different things, and then you're making money, and then one thing leads to another. And my account and my business and everything has evolved so much in the course of time from 2016 to now. Not only has Instagram and social media in general has changed tremendously, because there was a time where we were just taking pictures of our lattes and our salads and our sandwiches and putting a cute filter on it, and like you'd call it a day. And that was what Instagram was, right? But it's evolved so much since then. And then even like for me with the content that I do, I started out, it was very joking, like first world problems kind of stuff. But now I like to say anything that falls underneath the umbrella of a anything that falls underneath the umbrella of a modern mom problem is something that I'm going to talk about. So whether it's like running to Target and, you know, killing time and just like drinking iced coffee walking through Target, or very serious things like pregnancy loss, maternal mental health, all of those things are something that I'm going to talk about. So it's not just one thing or the other. It's like if it falls underneath that umbrella, it's something that I'm going to address.
Love it. And we need that. And something you just want to touch upon, something you said earlier, which is the identity piece of your shift. A lot of the work that I do, the core root of it is how we see ourselves and who we think we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the ultimate shift is
Yeah.
the identity shift. So
Huge one.
huge, right? So like
Yeah.
you left this corporate media job and turned to become a successful entrepreneur, that we could spend 2 hours just talking about that transformation of who you were and who you became. But to your point, who am I without this title? We don't stop to ask ourselves that question. We're too busy doing and going and proving. And then one day we look around or someone asks us, like, who are you without the title? And it's like, not really sure. I'm a mom, I'm a leader, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a wife, whatever. But then like outside of that, who are we? So I love that you touched upon that because I think it is so important. Now, when you talk about modern motherhood, which I love, I like to call us the do it all generation of women. We're doing all the things pretty successfully, I might add.
Yeah. Pat ourselves on the
Pat
back for
ourselves
that one,
a
because
pat on
I
the back,
agree.
a
Yeah.
round of applause. Tell us, I know there's a lot here, but tell us what you see as some of the biggest challenges that we're facing as modern moms today.
Yes. This is something that I speak about often, whether it's on my podcast or other podcasts. And I like to say that I have like a top 10 list. I'm not going to go through all of those right now, but one of the absolute biggest ones is a lack of an in-person village. People and families live so far away from each other. It's not like it was years ago where maybe everyone would live on the same block or even in the same building where you could necessarily go to your neighbor or go to your sister and ask for a cup of sugar, or even, hey, can you watch my kids? I have to go to the store. So lack of an in-person village is huge. That also ties into loneliness. There's a loneliness epidemic in our country right now, and those are inherently tied. Same thing with social media and technology. There's so much. I was having a really great conversation with a woman a few weeks ago about parenting and ADHD. And what she was saying, and it hadn't really occurred to me, but it makes so much sense, is how accessible we all are nowadays. Where so she was saying, she's like, when I was growing up, she was like, yeah, my mom was like the head of the PTA, but also at the same time, she was just able to only focus on the PTA at that exact moment. Meaning that like my father like wasn't calling her from the supermarket asking her what to get while she was doing that. She could just focus on that. And I thought that makes so much sense because now, our phones are, they're sitting next to us, right? And obviously the notifications are probably pinging silently because you can't hear them right now, but they're going off in the background, right? So everyone's trying to get a hold of you for all different things all of the time. And that is something that didn't necessarily happen for modern moms. So I'm going to start to add that to my list of the top 10 issues or top 10 modern mom problems, because I think that's a big one. Accessibility is really a huge one. It's so hard to focus nowadays.
Excessive. I think it's a really important point, and the fact that we're always on, always available. And one of the other things that I talk about is when we are so saturated, what happens is we become diluted.
Yes.
And then we are losing our impact. We're losing touch with our purpose. And so we settle and we don't realize we are settling in different areas of our lives because we think we're doing all the things and we're kicking ass, and we are, but right, we're losing focus and we become diluted when we're saturated. So.
That's beautiful. I'm taking notes on that one, Gia, because you're absolutely, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do all the things. And so I think it's a great point is, how do we get back to focusing and being present and all of that, which is a challenge.
It is a modern mom problem.
Modern mom problem. Absolutely. So you talk a lot about mental health. I know you're an advocate, and mental health is a cornerstone of your message, rightfully so. Tell us a little bit about the role of mental health in motherhood and, any shifts that maybe you had to go through in terms of how you parent, create, lead.
Gosh, all of the things.
All
Yes.
the things.
I have to say, I'm very thrilled that this year the Mental Health Coalition, which was founded by Kenneth Cole, has recognized me as a mental health champion.
Incredible.
Which I just thought was thank you. I appreciate that, which I think is super, super awesome for the work that I do, obviously on social and on podcasting.
Yeah.
And a lot of it starts with just talking about it. 10 years ago, actually, no, oh my gosh, my kid is so old now. Let me backtrack. 15 years ago, when I was trying to start a family and I was suffering from pregnancy loss and then infertility, social media was not where it was nowadays, to where people were talking about um, issues and struggles that they're having, right? That goes back to when I was like, oh, we're taking pictures of our lattes, we're taking pictures of sunsets and that kind of stuff. I'm so grateful that social media has gotten to a place now where we can share our stories and we can be there for each other in a meaningful way. So definitely starts with talking about it. It starts with sharing our stories about our experiences. And then even if someone didn't necessarily experience that themselves, that they could sort of put themselves in your shoes and empathize and say, wow, I could imagine that that must have been really hard. I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. And I'm grateful, like I said, that we have the platforms now to be able to like share these ideas and talk about that. And so social media is a big part of that. I think podcasting is a really big part of that. And so it's important to share our stories, to build awareness, particularly around maternal mental health and the concept of whether it's postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, the mental load of motherhood, all of those things. We need to be talking about it, not suffering in silence.
Yeah. I think that the community piece of that and aspect, like you said, is really important. I think there's less stigma, less taboo, although we still have more work to do.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, we are making progress, and it is so intertwined. So
It
I love
absolutely is.
absolutely, and with the kids too, right? So I think it's really an important aspect of the work that you do.
Yeah.
Um, Tara, I would love to just dive into you talk about the type C mom or the type C parent.
Yeah.
And I love the
Yeah.
concept. And for our listeners who may not know what that is, tell us.
Yeah, I definitely will. So it's funny, myself didn't really know what it was. A friend of mine was writing an article for Good Morning America or ABC News, depending how you look at it on the website. And she said, Tara, can you speak to the concept of type C mom? And I was like, yeah, because what she actually said was, you were one of the first people I thought of when I was writing this article, which is why she tapped to interview me for it. So I'll give you the concept. Many people know what a type A personality is. It's very buttoned up, very organized, very punctual. You're labeling all of the children's toy bins. You have maybe color coded bookshelves and super, super organized. Okay. Then there's type B, which is much more laissez faire. You're letting the kids sort of like free range, do what they want to do. You're fully taking a back seat so that they could step into their own autonomy. Then there's type C moms, and this is where I come in. Type C moms are a combination or a blend of both. Now, when my son was first born, I was super type A, right? I was like documenting everything and right on top. I was the biggest helicopter mom you could possibly imagine, watching him on the playground, like, oh, ah, 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 oh. And then the older he got, he's 12 and a half now. The older he got, I realized that was not sustainable, not for him, nor for me.
Right.
And I needed to take a step back and like tone it down quite a bit, dial it back, right? In order for him to come into his own, for him to trust himself, to build his own confidence, because I couldn't be on top of him all the time. And so a type C mom is a blend of A and B, where we still get our kids to practice on time and we still may bring all the snacks that we need to bring for practice. But then we want to make sure that they're the ones that are remembering to bring those snacks inside to the practice.
Lots of
Right?
snacks. Lots of snacks.
So many snacks, all snacks. If you could sum up parenting in one word, it's probably snacks.
Snacks. That's it.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So it's not quite as diligent as a type A, and it's not quite as laissez-faire as type B. It's
Yes.
somewhere in the middle. And I'm all about balance in life. I'm very even keeled from a personality standpoint. I mean, I'm high energy. It's not like I'm not high energy. I'm definitely high energy. I'm from New Jersey. I'm very much from New Jersey.
Talk with your hands a lot.
Yeah, all of that. But I'm high energy, but at the same time, I'm even keeled. And so from an emotional regulation standpoint, all of those kinds of things. And my parenting now at this point in our journey reflects that. And I think that there's something beautiful about the balance of being a type C parent, because like I said, we're still on top of things enough that we are organized and we do show up on time for all of that kind of stuff. But then also, I want my son to be able to know that he can make mistakes and he can learn from those mistakes and have him make choices that he needs to make. Because when he gets to be an adult, guess what? He's going to be making all of those choices. So you might as well start now.
It's a great concept. I love the term. I love the concept. I think it helps give us as modern moms the ability to say we don't have to be one or the other. We don't have to fit into a box that society tends to put us in. And
Yep.
as you were talking, I just reflected on my own journey. And like I was the same. I used to be the type A in corporate. In my old role, I was very buttoned up, very corporate, right? Everything's very regimented. My kids were little, same thing. I used to leave not only post-it notes when I had to travel, I had lists on top of lists. And then I put the post-it notes on the door. This door stays open. This door stays closed. That's literally that I couldn't leave. Like everything was meal prepped, right?
Yep.
Crazy. And then something changed, right? A lot of things changed. But then I became I went to the opposite end where I was that laissez-faire type B, where I was like, not whatever, but very much laid back, more relaxed. I don't care if my house is a mess. My kids are happy, they're healthy, they're having fun. I don't care, right? Or if I'm sitting on the couch and someone says, "What are you doing?" I'm doing nothing.
Yes.
And I'm okay with it. Whereas old me would have been like, oh, I'm cleaning, I'm organizing, I'm doing my calendar, I'm shopping for food, right? So,
Yes.
but it is that blend of both worlds where the beauty lies, where you have the structure that the kids need, but you're also not holding on too tight and being that helicopter mom.
Exactly that. Exactly that. So I'm glad that going back to like having conversations, I'm glad that people are having conversations about this because it's important to give ourselves the grace to take a step back and sit on the couch and do something productive like rest. Your
Yeah.
body needs to rest. Sometimes you just have to turn your mind off and like that's okay. And I'm glad that we're being able to like accept that and have these conversations. So
Absolutely.
that was a fun article and project to talk about because I think one of the fun things about social media, there's many good things and bad things about it, but I try to I'm not that I'm a Pollyanna, but I like to look at the positive of things. And so one of the good things I think about social media is that we're able to put names to concepts that we otherwise like didn't know. For me, the concept of the mental load of motherhood only became a phrase once I saw it on social media. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's it. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for all these years. But for me, it didn't have a name. So
Yes.
I think that was important. Same thing with the concept of the type C mom. And now, again, there's so many people are throwing terms all over the place, but I do enjoy when we have words to concepts that we're sort of living every day.
100%. And I couldn't agree more. I think that socialization of those concepts is so important because you're right. We have these feelings and experiences, but we are not able to articulate or pinpoint what it is. I remember for me, the word was overfunctioning. When a friend of mine explained the term overfunctioning, it was like, blew my world, blew my
Yes.
mind, light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing.
Yes. You know who has a really good book about it? It's a new book. Dr. Judith Joseph has a new book called High Functioning Depression.
Yes.
And her whole book is about overfunctioning. She's lovely.
I had her on the show. She's fantastic. So I am very glad that we are able to have these conversations and normalize the experiences that we have as women.
So good. So good.
For sure. So I guess just, as we wrap up, Tara, what's one message or takeaway, one thing you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think the biggest thing is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace not to do all of the things all of the time for all of the people. And I've been teaching my son to not only give himself grace, but to give other people grace too, because sometimes not that he gets judgmental about things, but he'll be like, well, why doesn't this person pick up after themselves? Or why doesn't this person do that? I'm like, I don't know. That's on them. Right. So like give them grace, give yourself grace and we're okay. And so I think if people had more patience with themselves and each other, it would go so much easier. I think that things would just work out better if we weren't so quick to jump on each other and jump on ourselves for the different things.
Absolutely. It's great advice. And Tara, what's the one shift that changed everything for you?
There's been a lot of shifts because in my career, I've done a lot of different things, I have to say. But the biggest one was when I left corporate America and I took some time to spend with my family, and I came back bigger and better than ever with starting my own company and believing in myself and believing in my own creativity, my own business acumen, and just leaning into that. And that was the biggest shift, because it's easy to say, well, this is what I've always done and this is what I've always known, I'm going to go back to that. It's much, much harder to say, I'm betting on myself, and feet don't fail me now, and leaning into that. And so that was probably one of my biggest shifts.
Yeah. Listening to your intuition and following your heart. Love it. I love it. And want to thank you so much for being here today, Tara, for the work that you're doing. Really, it's truly been a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here and chat with you and talk about all the things.
So much fun. So where can our listeners find you?
You could find me on Instagram at Modern Mom Probs. You could listen to the podcast, Modern Mom Probs. I'm big into branding, so everything would be Modern Mom Probs. My book is Modern Mom Probs.
Makes it easy.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much again for sharing your insight, your story, and expertise. Love the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Now go make shift happen. Take care. All right, Shifter, that's a wrap on today's episode of What the Shift. But here's the thing. Awareness is just the first step. The real shift happens when you decide to do something with it. So before you go back to business as usual, ask yourself, what is one thing you are done carrying? What's one shift you're ready to make? And if this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and send it to a woman who needs to hear this, because we shift together. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next step. And I'll be right here next week, ready to shift with you. This is What the Shift, and we are just getting started.